Hey, Thomas Bartke here with Artisan Sound channel, and this is another video. I'm actually going to start a short series here of kind of like a sound mentorship that you can follow along and do some of the tasks yourself. And we're going to do it kind of collaboratively so that we can figure out, how to do it the best way together rather than me just doing it for you. So I posted the Fiddler on the Roof progress from just looking at the characters, the songs, and the scenes, and then creating a mic plot from that, and then transferring that into the X32 console and assigning DCA groups to that and setting it all up for mixing, and then going through all the way through the process of creating a mute automation plot for a Fiddler on the Roof for a show. Now, this is going to be a different show, a new show that we're also currently producing at the Artisan Center Theater. It's Freaky Friday. And on the Freaky Friday show, I'm just going to show you step by step, just going from scratch, how I set up my spreadsheet in Google Drive or Google Docs, so that you can go along and do it exactly the way I do it. And you can do your own modifications if you like to do it differently. But I think hopefully this will help you do it, see how I do it myself. So this is a character list here of Freaky Friday, and there are tons and tons of people. There are some handwritten notes here from our music director that I don't know actually what it means, but I'll figure out what it means. So we'll see. We'll figure it out together. And then there's a list of scenes and musical numbers. So this is a more complex show. I want to tell you a couple of assumptions that I'm going to make going in. I'm going to assume that that I do my DCA group assignments in such a way that I have access to all relevant mixing features just basically in the 8 faders that are the DCA group, which gives me 2 significant advantages. Number one, I can really focus on balancing groups of microphones for each musical number. Musical numbers are more important because, number one, it's a musical. Number two, they're harder to balance than dialogue scenes. And number three, it's more important for musical numbers in a musical to sound really good. They only sound really good if you have a way to efficiently balance the sound. And so if we can figure out how to, for each individual musical number, how to make it sound awesome by grouping the 16 mic inputs that we have available down into just 8 DCA groups and have optimal control for that individual musical number, that's going to be my goal. That's going to be my chief goal. Now, I'm assuming in this process, number one, because the show is complex, there are musical numbers that have very different structures. There's lots of backing tracks that have to be balanced out and that are harmonies in backing tracks, and then multiple principals that are singing solo numbers, or I should say solo lines in duos or trios, and then still backing vocals behind that. So it's complex. And because of that, I'm not expecting that one layout of the 8 DCA groups will be able to give me the optimal breakdown goal that I outlined at first, all in one single setup of the configuration of the DCA, of the 8 DCA groups. So because of that, I'm just not going to constrain myself to that, because I know, and I'm going to show you, you're going to know after we go through this process, you're going to know as well, that it's actually no problem at all to reconfigure the DCA groups multiple times during the show. If you work with the automation that I already showed you how to set up in Fiddler, in the Fiddler sequence, you're going to find that it's actually no problem at all to reconfigure the DCA group as many times as you need to. And since we're going to go under the assumption that we're going to not try to look for just one DCA group setup for all numbers, but we can change that as needed. And the only goal would be then to make the DCA group setups between all the different numbers that we're going to decide that, okay, that requires a different DCA group configuration, that all the DCA group configurations that we're going to create for this show are going to be intuitive and simple and like similar enough for our mixing brain to not be distracted and confused. So we have to all the time read the labels. But so speaking of labels, that's actually one awesome advantage of the way that we're doing it here. Let me just double check here. Yeah, okay, I'm recording, all good. So one awesome advantage is that with the reconfiguration of the DCA groups, we're going to relabel the names of the DCA group settings all the time. So when you look at the DCA group, you're just going to see immediately who's going to be on what fader. And then we're going to make it so that the vocal faders in the DCA group are going to be assigned similar functions or similar roles in the structure of the group setup, so that it's not going to be, oh, one time the soloists are on 2 and 3 and the other time they're on 7 and 8. But the soloists will always be in the front groups, in the front of the DCA groups, and music will always be on DCA group 1. The soloists, for whatever the musical number is, will always be in the front faders from 2 on the DCA group, and then accompanying vocalists will always be in the other faders that are left over after we're done with the separation of the solo lines that we have in that specific musical number. And then fader number 8, DCA 8, will always be left over, reserved for balancing the vocal effects, the reverb, and whatever we decide to use in this particular show. I'm anticipating to use a little bit more refined sound design as far as the vocal effects are concerned on this show, because it's more modern music, it's more poppy. So we're going to probably put a delay effect on the vocals in addition to a reverb, and probably also a chorus effect, at least on the backing vocal. But we'll walk through that, and we'll make it so that it's not complicated for the purpose of doing the actual mix when you're running the mix, as long as you have it set up in a way where it's easy. So that's the whole goal. All right. So with that said, our first act of business here, first order of business here, will be to catalog the roles, the characters, and make a list of all the musical numbers. So we're going to start with the musical numbers, because as you've seen with the fiddler show, and if you've looked at those videos, adding the dialogue scenes before we actually made the whole layout makes things actually a lot more complicated than it needs to be. So in this case, we're just going to focus on the musical numbers. There's going to be enough complexity there that we have to solve by reconfiguring DCA groups. And then based on that, we're just going to work the dialogue scenes in between the vocal numbers once we've created the setups for all the vocal numbers, and we kind of have a list of things and setups and situations that we have to have separated out. Okay, so that'll all make sense as we go through. So the first thing we're going to do is make a list of all the actors, all the characters across the top, and all the musical numbers down the side on the left side. And we're going to just have a preliminary order of the actors. And we're going to reshuffle that once we just determine the microphone channel assignments for all singers that are going to be mic'd. All right. So the way you do this, I'm just going to, for the rest of this video, I'm just going to walk you through the basics of getting started with setting up a Google Sheet so that it looks good and is easy to operate. So in Google Drive, and you can do this in a free account. If you have Gmail, you can just go to Google Drive and work on Google Sheets. So that's why I'm doing it in here, because it's so easy to access and to get for anyone who has a computer and internet access and a Gmail account, I suppose. So you go to new and you go to new Google Sheets, and you simply go here and click new blank spreadsheet. So that opens like this. You're just gonna name that Freaky Friday music work. MX stands for music. That's kind of an industry standard from the film music end of things. We're going to just display this a little bit smaller here. Not so you can see it any worse, but just so we see a little bit more. And so then what we're going to do here is on the first line, we're basically going to have mic channel. And that's going to be filled in later, but that's going to be up on top across the top line over here, all right? And then, before I do this, before I move any further, I'm actually going to set the entire spreadsheet to be centered so that the the entries in this are always centered in each cell. And I'm actually going to change that for the first column. First column I want to have left bound. Okay. And now for the entire spreadsheet, I'm going to do two more important things. One has to do with the format. When you go into format and you click alternating colors, I like that a lot because it helps me kind of keep track of, I can follow along with the, with the rows better when I go across from the musical number into the columns and see where the different cast members are participating in that musical number, because that's going to be, the layout is going to be the same as what I showed you in the Fiddler series. So the names of the actors will be across this line here, this row, and then the musical numbers will be listed down this first column, and we're probably going to have to open this up wider because we want to have that have enough space to have the name of the musical number there. And there you go. So that's all for that. And then one more thing, and that is in the view field here, you can do something cool, and that is freeze. We're going to set it to freeze 2 rows like that. So what that does is once we have data in here like this, and I have, a role name here. Let's just put a real role name there. Let's see what happens here. We have, okay, okay, so Ellie is our hero. That's going to be in the front, probably. And then Catherine is Ellie's mother. And so forth. Okay, so we're going to just keep this open because I'm going to leave this for you to fill out on your own if you want to do this kind of collaboratively. And then, we'll compare notes later on how we did it, how you did it. So the feature here with this freeze 2 rows feature is, see, once you have things filled in the rows, when you scroll, those top rows here will always remain on top. And that way you don't lose orientation of where you are. Because once you have things filled out and you're scrolling down, imagine if the 2 top rows would now be out of view and you just have a big field of X's, and and on the side you have, the column, but you lose the header rows. And so since I have 2 rows here for headers, one for the mic channels that will eventually be entered there, and one for the cast names, I want to have always orientation of what's going on there. So now I'm thinking that we really should do this according to the musical numbers and then kind of decide on the priority of how these actors go here. I was first thinking that we could just go down the character lists that I copied, and look at this and just go down the list. But I'm thinking that, well, we could do it like that, or we could just go along the musical numbers and do it that way. But I guess it's a matter of prioritization. So let's make a little assumption here. Let's make the assumption that the music director's notes mean something. I think that's a really cool assumption. And let's just put them in here. I wonder why this number 9 is the way it is here, but let's just follow this order just for a work approach. And let's just put the first 12 characters on the top here. And then we're going to start gathering the musical numbers down here. And so that's what I'm going to do. That's my approach. And I share the link to this spreadsheet with the description in the YouTube video. But I also invite you to just create your own from scratch and do it yourself, so you get practice in doing this exercise with me. And you can do this for any show that you might be working on. But we're going to go through the Freaky Friday preparation together in this collaborative playlist that's going to be in the Artisan Sound Mentorship Program, if you will call it that way. All right, here we go. This is it. That's it for the first video. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.